What's up, everybody? It's Charles. I just got home from Alpine Vag Fair in Helen, Georgia, and while I was there, the old Mark IV R32 decided to spring a water leak. Of course, it was like a torrential downpour, so it makes a lot of sense. But I walked out in the morning and had a puddle of water in the passenger side floorboard. First up, let's get the seat out and get the carpet up and let this start drying. These seats are pretty easy to remove. I did a whole video on exactly step-by-step how to do it. The short version is there's two 13s at the front of the seat. Then we need to slide the seat forward and remove the two trim rails, which are either held in with T20 Torx or Phillips head screws. Once we get the seat unbolted, we can lift it up and back and disconnect our connectors here. We are disconnecting airbag connectors, so you may want to disconnect the battery for this job. And we can just go ahead and slide the seat back and out of the seat rail. All right, now we got the seat out. You can see we still got quite a bit of dampness in the back as well. Check that out. All that is foam from the blend doors coming out of the HVAC system. Plus note, we'll get to clean that up too, I guess. Next, we're going to remove the door sill trim. We'll start up at the front. This piece should just pop right off. You can see there's a trim clip right here that's all destroyed, and then another one down at the bottom. We got the first part of the trim at the bottom of the A-pillar off. Next, we need to remove this piece. We're probably not going to take it all the way out. Just pop it up so that we can get the carpet out. To remove this piece, I just like to take my hand and slide it under and just gently pull it up. There's about three or four trim clips that hold it in. You definitely want to work this piece up, not just yank it. They, like most Mark IV plastic, get super fragile. So there we go, that's up out of the way. This is also a couple of different pieces. You have the carpet, and then you have a front pad and a rear pad. Next, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull the carpet back like this. You can see, even though you couldn't see any standing water on the carpet, this is just absolutely soaked. We're just gonna go ahead and peel this whole carpet back. Our goal here is just to lift this stuff up. That way we can start to dry it out. Pay attention to your wiring harness. Make sure it's not trapped. And then we do need to lift the carpet up and over our HVAC duct. Now we can lift our carpet up and back. Just like that. Now that we got the carpet up, we need to get the padding up. For this, I like to take a pry bar and just lift up on the padding. Just be careful of your plastic trim. Once we have the carpet up and supported like this, notice I got a couple pry bars kind of holding it up. That's gonna allow the water to drain. Now, if there's standing water like there is here, you'll notice there's a body plug. We can remove that body plug and let the water drain out of the bottom. Now that we have our carpet up and supported, all the water is going to drain down onto the floorboard. We pulled that back body plug, so we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and turn this fan on and just let the water dry. This may take overnight. This may take a couple of days. Just depends on how much water that we had. Now, there is also standing water in the front of the vehicle. If we needed to, we can pull one of these front body plugs and help that water drain out a little bit faster. They are underneath sound deadening, but that doesn't really make that much of a difference. We can always put an extra little bit over it if we needed to. All right, it has been about a day since we pulled the carpet up. I actually added a second fan in here to help that dry a little bit faster. So the carpet and the padding are totally dry. I did find something rather interesting though. I pulled this body plug out and we'll go ahead and put that one back in. But someone decided to lift the car not on a reinforced spot. And now we have this spot where the paint is all screwed up on the inside of the car. So I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of paint just to prevent from rusting or anything like that. We'll probably have to come back and address this a little bit better a different time. But I gotta get this car back together. I'm gonna sand this down a little bit and we'll just hit it in here with some paint and try and just cover up the bare metal. We're not going to be doing anything fancy with it, just so that it doesn't cause a rust issue. Funny enough, this is the only applicable grit sandpaper that I have, so it's what we're gonna use. Do, 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 do. While the spot that we just threw some primer on is drying, let's go ahead and put our body plug on the other side. Now you can snap these just in, just boop, plop them right in. and that's totally cool. I like to put a dab of clear silicone on them just to help it seal a little bit better. Probably overkill, but that's how I like to do it. This is coming out white, but it will dry clear. And just go ahead and pop that in. Over time, these do get kind of brittle and fall apart. So maybe something worth looking at replacing. Before we put the padding and the carpet all back in, we really want to do a good job and make sure that it's completely dry. If it's wet at all, that can lead to some stank that we definitely don't want. We have the padding at the rear. We have the padding in the front, like where the passenger or driver would put their feet. We also have another padding way up on the bulkhead or firewall. You also want to make sure that that's dry too. A lot of times people will dry the front, dry the back, but won't dry that one up here in the front, and they'll end up still having some musty, moldy smell because this never got properly dried. Also, while we're here, we want to look at this connector junction and make sure we don't have any corrosion in any of the wiring. Luckily, this water wasn't in here very long, so we don't have any issues here. There's also a ground junction here you want to take a good look at. Make sure it's not corroded as well. The spot that we put the primer on looks like it's nice and dry. Let's go ahead and take our other body plug. Go ahead and put our sealant on it. All right, there we go. That should dry up just fine. Got pretty much everything ready to get the carpet and padding back down. Let's go ahead and start with our padding. Now, while you're working on getting this all back together, give it a couple of sniffs and see how it smells. Also, I like to squeeze the padding and make sure that we didn't miss a spot that we were trying to dry. Make sure you get everybody tucked back up where they need to go. Definitely make sure you get the padding underneath the vent, otherwise you're gonna end up blocking your vents. We'll go ahead and do the same thing for the front padding. Get all of our props out of the way. If you want, you can even spray this with a little bit of like Lysol or something like that if you're worried about smell. The padding is all down. Let's go ahead and put our carpet back in place. Now this carpet's pretty resilient, so if you need to be a bit aggressive with it, that's cool too. Just like with our padding, make sure you get the vents on top of the carpet. Put our loom where it goes. Then I usually actually get in the car and smooth it out. Make it real nice, real nice. All right, next let's get our door sill trim back on. We want to make sure that our clips are properly installed. If they're not installed or like half hanging out like this one is, they're not going to line up with the holes in the body of the car, and you're either going to break the trim or smash the clip. So make sure all your clips are installed in the trim properly first. And what I like to do is I like to line all of them up in the holes of the body, set the trim in its location, and then just push down on it, working my way either front to back or back to front. And of course, make sure your door seal is set properly. Now that we have our water all out of our car, our carpet's dry, we'll vacuum it before we put the seat in. It's time to address what the actual problem was. This is a super common problem on many, many Volkswagens. Luckily, the Mark IV B5 were pretty easy to take care of. We're looking at the passenger side here. Here's the glove box. Here's our door trim. As we look way into the door jamb, we'll see this little nipple piece right here. This is actually the end of the sunroof drain. If we squeeze this nipple and it's clogged, a big old chunk of dirt would come out, followed by a big old gush of water. Now I did that already when I found that the floorboard was full of water, so we don't need to do that again, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix it so this never happens again. Now we can do this a couple of different ways. We can pull this entire piece off and trim it if we really want to, but rather than doing it that way, I normally take either a pair of side cutters or a razor blade and just cut it so that we don't ever have to worry about that little tiny seal here getting clogged up. So we'll just take a pair of side cutters like this and snip it. Now we won't have to ever worry about that getting clogged up or getting weird on us. I just did the passenger side. You definitely want to make sure you do both front drains for the sunroof. So now we went ahead and fixed the problem, but we always need to quality check our work and make sure that that was actually in fact the issue. Keep in mind, if you have the seat out and unplugged, when you turn the ignition on, you are going to get an airbag light. So if you don't have a way to clear the airbag, go ahead and put the seat back in first and then turn your ignition on. Next, I'm going to open up the sunroof, do a quick leak check, and then we'll clean the drains out. With the sunroof open, we can actually see the drains for the front. In each of the corners, way up in the front, there's a tiny little hole. That hole is our drain tube. In order to clean out and leak test this drain, we're gonna take a bottle, fill it with water. You don't have to use a plastic bottle, just something with a small opening. And we're gonna pour it right here in the front tray. I like to do this with the nose of the car down a little bit. That way we can really make sure it's flushed out. Go ahead and pour your water down, and it should come out the front drain. Be careful and don't flood the inside of your car with this. Now I'm gonna do the same thing on the driver's side, pour my water in the sunroof opening. You can see it comes out a little bit different. Now watch what happens when I push down on this nipple. We actually get the full amount of water out. Quite a big difference from there to the other side that I cut. Now, even though we weren't experiencing a leak on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and snip this drain anyway to prevent it from getting clogged in the future. So we found that our drains drain perfectly fine. What do we do if we find that they don't? Well, the water's gonna go somewhere, and one of a couple of things is gonna happen. Either our connection here in the frame of the car has come loose, we have an issue up here where the sunroof track meets the drain tube, or our drain tube somewhere along here is clogged. When we do that water test, we're seeing water on the inside of the car. It's probably because this connection here is bad. We would need to take the rubber boot off and reconnect it. If we end up seeing water up here, that means this connection is probably not good. If we get no water out and we don't see any water down the A-pillar or anything like that, now we need to clean our drain out because it's probably got a blockage in it somewhere. I have this old speedometer cable. This actually came from a speedometer cable kit. I think they're like $3. I just put a little tape on the end so we didn't poke any holes in the tube. And we can fish this down through that hole that we poured our water in down to where the opening is. And that'll help us clean out any dirt or debris stuck inside the tube. If you are going to do this, this works really, really well. Just be ultra careful. You can use whatever you want. You just want it to be flexible. If it ends up that it's too rigid, you can knock the tube right off. Then we're gonna have even more water problems. So with our sunroof open, we are going to find that little drain hole that we were pouring our water down. We're gonna take the end of our speedometer cable or whatever we're using, and we're gonna very slowly, very gently fish this down through until it comes out of the drain. Do not rush this. Do not just jam this down there, or you're gonna end up knocking the drain tube off, and you're gonna create a bigger problem than you had before. Give it a few strokes through. Once you see it come out the bottom, you're good to go. And one more time, go ahead and pour some water down there to make sure that our tube's not clogged. We're at my Passat wagon. As you can see, it's pretty much got the same exact drain that the R32 has. The drain runs inside the frame, up the A-pillar, to the sunroof track. If we pull the headliner down, you can see right there, that's where the connection is. I have all the pillars out of this car, but you can pull the headliner down very gently and see that connection. When you're leak testing it, if you don't see water coming out, pull the headliner down a little and look at this connection, then move to the back, pull your seal down, pull the headliner down a little bit, and look at the other connection back here. This one has two connections, one there and one there. A leak at either of those or the back of the sunroof frame can cause a pretty significant water leak. If this is where you're getting water, pull the tube off, put a little tiny dot of adhesive on the ball back here, and then put the tube back on. You don't want to put too much on there or it'll actually end up clogging the tube and making the problem worse. If the back drains are a problem, you'll usually end up getting a stain on the headliner that looks something like that. When we're ready to do the back drains and check to make sure they're clean, I like to have the car on an angle with the front end higher than the back end. This will force the water to drain a little bit faster. For this, we're not going to see the actual drain tube. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the outermost channel, take our water, pour it in, and then look for the water draining. And if we do it right, we should see the water draining right behind the rear tire. In my efforts to make sure that we are leak-free, tested the rear drains, found the passenger side was good, but the driver's side actually isn't draining, so we're gonna figure out why the heck that's happening. You could see there was water coming out the rear center of the headliner. Now, my headliner's been recovered, which is why it doesn't have this piece back here. Probably a good thing, because otherwise I might not have seen the water on the parcel cover. Let's get this back pillar off and see if we can figure out what's going on. So the trim panel's already loose because it wasn't really properly installed because it's been recovered. We need to get the rear seat belt off so we can pull the trim panel down. This little plastic cover just pops right off. Grab a 17mm socket and take the belt retainer off. There is a sleeve on this. Don't lose that. That needs to go back on. Now we can take the panel off, or at least just pull it back and take a look. Here's our tube right here. And I think I see where the leak is coming from. If we look up where the back connection for the sunroof track is, we can see the leak right there. If we wait long enough, we'll see that drip. All right, so after a bit of checking and testing, it turns out that the lower drain was actually the part that was having the issue. I would love to show you exactly what to do and how to do it. Unfortunately, that drain is kind of buried back behind the bumper. It's about right here, and there was a piece of junk clogged up in it. So I actually had to reach my hand up and under and way up underneath the bumper to get the piece of junk out. So if you're looking at the back of your car, it's about right here. Luckily, it wasn't that big of a deal. I was able to dry out the headliner, then recheck it to make sure that this fitting was not an issue. Also found that they did a pretty crappy job when they recovered the headliner. This is cardboard for some reason. I don't know why they would do that, but whatever, it's that way. We'll fix this another time. Right now, let's just get this car back together so we can drive it. Wait, how does it go? Oh, cue the reassembly montage. Whoosh! I am excited to finally be done and get that water leak fixed. Our right front leak is all taken care of. Carpet's dry, padding is dry, so we're good to go there. There are cases where you may want to actually replace that padding depending on how long the water has been in there. We also found the clog on the left rear, which I'm happy about, rather than finding a puddle of standing water or a completely ruined headliner. Also, in the comments of the video I posted on Instagram and Facebook, there was a lot of questions about finding water leaks. I think that would make a great video. What do you guys think? Drop it down in the comments. It'll be really awesome when the headliner and everything's out of the Passat, so I can show you exactly what we're looking for when all that stuff is out of the car. Rather than having to yank the headliner down or show you where it is on the outside of the car, we can actually see it on the inside of the car. With that, I'm out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you again next time. Oh, and here is a little sneak peek of what is probably going to be the next R32 video. New set of engine mounts.